The homily today is a little unique because I want to explain to you and share with you a unique and powerful way to live Holy Week. In the pews are these newsletters around you. I'd like you to find one. I'm going to walk you through it. This is going to be your guide for Holy Week, and I want to explain it to you. The Franciscans have an ancient and established way to live Holy Week called the Holy Week sequence. And that is to live each day of Holy Week in keeping to what Christ did in those days of Holy Week, and to really make Holy Week for us a very special and dedicated time. It's the only week of the year we call holy, but yet it's difficult to live it as a Holy Week, isn't it? Right? School's not going to stop, work's not going to stop, things aren't going to stop, and so we have to enter in and make some specific decisions to make the week holy, because nobody else is going to do that for us. Right? We don't live in a culture that stops for Holy Week, do we? We don't. So we're going to have to make that effort ourselves. And so I want to share with you the things that we're doing this week at St. Augustine's, during Holy Week, I should say, to help you live that. So you have a week to plan and prepare. Okay? On this, the column on the left is going to give a basic outline of the activities. The center part actually explains what's happening. So if you open it, up on the left hand, you'll see Holy Week sequence there. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire document with you. I want to go through some of it with you, help you. I want to explain it a bit. This document is found on our website. If you want to download it from there and pass it on, we're going to have lots of information there, and we're going to be letting you know lots of things. You're going to be getting emails and texts from us during Holy Week to help and remind you of the different events. The Holy Week sequence consists of focusing on the paradoxes and conflicts of Holy Week. You see where I'm reading? And following the movements of Christ from Palm Sunday to Easter by incorporating them into each day of Holy Week. That is that with each of the things that Christ does, there's a paradox in that, which we're going to focus on. For example, we're going to begin next Saturday. Next Saturday, we're going to take a day to prepare for Holy Week. So next Saturday it's the day of commitment, the day before Palm Sunday. Jesus is committed to his work as the Messiah, right? He knows who he is, he knows what he's about, and he's going to enter in Jerusalem on Palm Sunday with a very clear sense of who he is and what his mission is. He's committed. How about you? How about me? Do I have a clear sense of my mission? Do I know what my life is about? Saturday, we're going to stop and reflect together on the commitments we've made in our life. First of all, we're going to think about, each of you individually, what kind of commitment are you going to make for Holy Week? How are you going to make Holy Week set apart and holy? I would like all of you to make a commitment. You don't have to tell it to me, but to commit yourself to something. I'm going to pray a half an hour every day during Holy Week. Or I'm going to go to all the Holy Week services, or whatever it might be, to make some commitment. That's our favorite word, isn't it? Commitment. Right? That's the one thing. Second thing is, we reflect on the commitments we've already made in our lives. Those of you who are married, reflecting on that commitment. How is that commitment going? And we'll have an opportunity in the week to recommit ourselves to the commitments we've already made, right? Have you made a commitment to chastity, right? Purity? Have you made a commitment to be a good student? What kind of commitments have you made in your life? And I want you to think about them. And then lastly, are there any commitments you might want to make for the rest of this year? That from Easter on, almost like a New Year's resolution, are there some commitments you know you've been wanting to make in your life, but you just haven't done it yet? This is what Commitment Saturday is about. Seriously looking at our lives and saying, what am I committed to? What commitments have I made? Do I need to work on those commitments? And how am I going to live Holy Week? So next Saturday is huge because it sets the tone for the rest of the week. Okay? So spend this week thinking about that and write down your commitment If you look in the left-hand column, it says day before Palm Sunday. We are going to have a formal commitment service here at 7:30 p.m. at St. Augustine's. We're going to gather. We're going to talk about, we'll have a little more talking about Holy Week and commitment, opportunities perhaps to write down your commitments, some prayer around that. And what Sister Rose and Franciscans do is they might create some sort of symbol about their commitment, and they'll bring that to Palm Sunday. So as you're waving your palm, that palm is a procession of how Christ is committed to his mission, right? That we're welcoming Christ as the Messiah. And so that sometimes people will tie that little piece of paper to their palm, right? This is my commitment. I'm dedicated to Christ this week, particular way. For example, we'll share more about that on next Saturday if you choose to come. Okay? If you live all this, you're going to spend a lot of time in church on Holy Week. But it's Holy Week. That's the point. Right? Okay. So if you go back then on the flyer here where it says Commitment Day, day before Palm Sunday, I want to share with you the whole idea of paradox. So if you see where it says paradox, in everything Christ does in Holy Week, there seems to be a paradox. For example, the need to be identified with a unique mission that makes us feel important or special. And the paradox, this leads to fear of being limited by choosing this mission. What do I have to reject by making this choice? Right? So, all of us want to do something special with our lives, don't we? Don't all of us want to be special, have a unique role in the world? But by choosing that role, I have to ignore something else, right? So those of you who are married or will be married someday, by choosing that spouse, you have thus eliminated everybody else. Period. Right? And not everybody's willing to do that. By choosing to be a priest, I make this unique commitment, and in doing so, that alleviates me from certain things. Right? Every choice and commitment we make has a consequence to it. And that's okay. But sometimes we don't make commitments because we're too afraid of the consequences. That's the paradox. Jesus wasn't too afraid. That's the point. And so to think about your commitment, is there a commitment you want to make, but are you too afraid to make it because you're afraid of the consequences of it? That's what we're going to bring into this day. That's the paradox. The Lord is calling you to something. At the same time, that call is going to cause you to have some fear, because that call is going to have you have to let something go. When Christ called Peter, he left his nets behind. Got it? Move down to Palm Sunday. What's the paradox of this day? The desire to publicly display our commitment and the fear that our commitment will lead us to being rejected or singled out. So Christ on this day, he publicly declares, they're singing Hosanna, Hosanna. He is publicly being proclaimed as the Messiah. Right? And so with us, there is a desire for us to publicly display our commitments. Nobody really wants to get married in a small closet with nobody else seeing him. We want to stand in front of the whole world and make our commitment, right? Graduation, stand in front of everybody and show what we've done, right? And that's a beautiful thing, but yet at the same time, there tends to be a fear that because of my commitment, I'm going to be rejected and singled out. For example, you say, I'm going to pray during my noon hour every day of Holy Week. Tuesday of Holy Week, your coworkers say, hey, want to go have lunch? And you're going to say, I'm busy. Really? Come on, what are you doing? Things. There's going to be a fear to say, I've committed to take this hour in prayer every day because it's Holy Week. It's hard to say that, isn't it, right? So I make a commitment, yet there's a fear to be singled out for my commitment. That's just it, especially when it's a godly commitment. I make a commitment, but with it comes great fear, isn't it? Don't we? Right? I'm going to commit to being a more prayerful person. I'm in a restaurant to bless my meal. I can't do it. I can't lift my hand up there, right? That's the point. There's a fear. Christ he didn't have that fear. He publicly declared his commitment. And so that's the idea of these paradoxes, that we're going to look at Christ and we can see that in following Christ that there's this tension in us. And you can see on the left-hand column some practical things of how you can make your commitments public. For example, then for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of Holy Week, these are the parts of Holy Week that most of us don't do much with, don't we? We think of Palm Sunday and then Holy Thursday, Good Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is like, oh, what's that? So the gospel reading for Monday is the story of Jesus' feet being anointed by Mary. Right, the same Mary in this gospel. And it says that there was an alabaster jar of perfumed oil that she poured on the feet of Jesus, and that oil was worth 300 days' wages. Remember that? 300 days' wages is an entire year's salary. How many of you own a bottle of perfume, don't raise your hand, that's worth an entire year's wages? Think about it. A bottle of perfume that's worth $50,000. And then Mary dumps it all out in one sitting. Right? So Monday is extravagance Monday. That in our commitment, there's this extravagance of pouring ourselves out for Jesus. Jesus was okay with that extravagance, wasn't he? He was okay with it. Judas wasn't. He's like, that's a waste of money. Use it for the poor. And Jesus says, don't worry about that. You spend it on me, it's okay. The poor will always be with you. Take care of them too. But he never once got upset with Mary for wasting all of that on him. Interesting thing to think about, isn't it? So for Extravagance Monday, the paradox, the desire to spend and consume ourselves as if there were no future, to seize the day. But out of fear, we hoard or cling because we are uncertain about the future and where our commitments will lead us. We might sometimes make a commitment and we're ready to jump into it, but then, oh, never mind. That's going to be harder than I thought it would be. Right? This happens with young men that are discerning priesthood that I work with. Right? They feel this excitement about priesthood, and then they start to think about it. And they're like, well, what about this, and what about that, and what about this? And they don't have it all worked out, and they shrink away. Right? We become uncertain about the future, and rather than walking out in faith and trusting that God will be provided, I got to figure it all out myself, and because I don't have security in that, I walk away. Right? It's like the people that, let's go off the high dive. Yeah, that's very great. You go to the high dive, and you shrink away. Right? I'm not sure. I'm uncertain, so I'm going to cling. I'm going to hold on to. How many of you times have you thought, hon, let's just sell all this stuff and give it to the poor? And you get ready to do it, and you're like, never mind. Right? Never mind. Never mind. Right? That's the great paradox. Christ is calling us to abandon all things, aren't we? Right? And so today, in the sense of extravagance, pouring it out, you can see on Monday we'll have a special Mass here at 5:30, and this is the day where we're going to renew our vows. Think of those commitments. If you're married, we'll renew those. Whatever vows or commitments you've made, we'll have a special Mass followed by a dinner and a dance. This is we're pouring out the oil. It's a day of extravagance, a day of celebrating our commitments. The oil is being poured out because Christ is Messiah. Got it? Now, I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to go through a couple more. But we'll have opportunities, and we'll be sharing more with you over the internet, through emails and things like that. Okay? I want to go through Tuesday and then end with a couple of things. Okay? Tuesday is called Compulsion to Completion. It's Tuesday of Holy Week. This is the day when we call to mind the cleansing of the temple. Jesus goes into the temple and he overturns the money tables. Remember that? Right? So Jesus, this was a big sign of Jesus completing his mission. This was one of the main reasons why he was crucified. He walked in the temple on the Feast of Passover and created a scene. That's like someone walking into midnight mass at Christmas and knocking the Christmas tree over and overturning the manger scene. You'd be, what's going on? Christ was claiming the temple for himself, right? They said, what are you doing? He said, destroy this temple, in 3 days I'll raise it up. And it says he was speaking about the temple of his body. I'm the temple. I'm the place of right worship. This is my Father's house. I'm in charge. Right? And then he went to complete his mission. A couple days later, he would die for us. The paradox. Tuesday. The zeal to fulfill one's purpose in life, to really go for it. But then the hesitation and fear to go forward until each part is completed, not trusting. See, all of these are very similar, aren't they? That I really do want to go for it, but I just pull back and I'm afraid to do it. Afraid to do it. So we gave you some practical ideas on the left-hand side there, right? We're going to have some opportunities to maybe complete some things that you haven't completed in your life. Are there things in your life you've been meaning to do and you just haven't done it? Because sometimes when we get hung up and we don't do this, we don't do the rest of it. Right? Like that messy room, you haven't cleaned for years. And you just keep putting it off. Just do it. right? Is there something you just need to get done and do it? Is there something you need to forgive, but you keep putting it off? We're going to do it on Tuesday. Tuesday's the day we're going to complete something. We're going to fulfill something. And because with that completion comes empowerment, victory. I can do this. And it helps us be have more control and more power in the commitments we've made. This is how Holy Week's going to work. I'll do Wednesday, and then we'll leave the Triduum out. Wednesday is called the day of aloneness. We call to mind the day of preparation. So Christ has cleansed the temple. Holy Thursday is the Last Supper. What about Wednesday? That's the day that Jesus, it's like he sneaks off by himself in the Scriptures. It's the quiet day. Perhaps he went off the mountain alone to pray. He's preparing himself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It's a day of being alone. That alone to center and focus myself, right? Because ultimately, in the end, I'm doing this with God. Yes, we have a community, but in the end, you've got to do it. In the end, you have to say, I'm sorry. In the end, you have to say the prayers. In the end, you have to go out and serve the poor, right? You know what I'm saying? In the end, I've got to do it. So I need to prepare myself. So Wednesday is that day of seeking out silence, to spend time in extra prayer. And so we give you some suggestions of ways of sort of being alone. Being alone, that's I'm going to pull myself apart like Jesus did so I can prepare to live the Triduum in a powerful way. So you're welcome to take this with you. Again, it's online. We invite you to all of these events, as many as you can. We want to help you live Holy Week in a more profound way. So next Saturday in the evening, if you want to come, we're going to do our commitment day and then enter into Holy Week. And we're just going to go for it this year, living Holy Week in a much, much more profound way than perhaps any of you ever have. It's going to be new for me, some of these things, and so I wish you many, many blessings as we move forward.